Hello, my name is Colin Campbell. I'm with Polygon. You're looking at Aurion, Legacy of the Kori-Odan. It's a really pretty game, as you can see. It's set in a fantasy version of Africa, and the main character here, the one on the left, is a prince, a king who's just been married and taken over his kingdom. This usurper, this relative, comes along and takes the kingdom away from him. So he and his wife, who you can see here, go off, they quest, they journey in order to increase their power and in order to come back and retake the kingdom. Now, that's a fairly straightforward narrative. We've seen it plenty of times in European and East Asian fantasy stories, but there's a difference here because this is entirely set in Africa with African characters, and it's a game that was developed in Africa, in Cameroon in fact, and I believe the company that created it, Kiro'o Games, I hope I've said that right, are the only developer in Cameroon, or certainly making full PC games. They went on Kickstarter last year to raise a little bit of money to get this game done, and I spoke to them at the time, and I was really impressed and interested in their ideas about creating a world in which African ideas and African mythologies could be given full play. Now, there are certain ideas in fiction that are universal, but here we see a world, we hear a world, we feel a world, and we experience characters who are different from the characters we see in European, North American and Asian fantasies, and it makes it so refreshing to be a part of this story. It helps also that the art is really beautifully done, this deliciously crisp hand-drawn style of artwork, this world that seems slightly different and unique and fresh from all the other worlds that we see so often in fantasy games. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed playing this game. Now, what actually happens in the game, it's described as an action RPG, and there are certain RPG elements to the game. You run around, you walk around, and you interact with other characters, and they give you quests, and you find things, and you level up. But actually the game is really mostly a 2D fighter, a brawler. You spend quite a lot of time in order to progress, just basically in these real-time fights with other characters. And it is difficult to make a convincingly made 2D fighting game, and so let's see how they've done. Well, I think that they've done a pretty good job of creating interesting fighting mechanics, or at least slick fighting mechanics. Nobody's going to accuse the sort of action element of this game of being particularly original. It's obviously heavily influenced by a lot of games that have come out of Japan in the last 25 years, but it doesn't matter because it adds something fresh and new to the mix in terms of its narrative, and the mechanics they feel fresh, they feel alive. I've only played 2 or 3 hours of the game so far, and what I've found is that the controls take a little bit of a while to master. Once you master them, once you get the hang of beating these other characters, of the special moves, then it all becomes extremely satisfying. And there's also some interesting things going on here with the mythology of the game, with some of the underlying ideas about how a character strives to become fully themselves through inner spirituality. And that's one of the things that the developers said that they really wanted to work on, was to bring this unique idea out into the open and to sort of celebrate the difference in this philosophy. And I think they've done a pretty good job of that in the narrative. And so here we see the character, the king, as he just sort of goes around the world. And this part of the game I really like, is just wandering around the world and seeing these unfamiliar characters and these slightly unfamiliar colours, and doing fairly mundane things like picking stuff up and finding which character you need to talk to, and trading with merchants and buying the sort of health and stuff that you need to continue through the game. And what you end up with is a pretty decent role-playing game with a lot of 2D fighting going on that seems to work. With this 2D fighting, you are constantly trying to pull off special moves that will defeat these sort of big bosses, and a lot of time there's also sort of hordes of lower level enemies to destroy. So Aurion is a game that is from Africa. It's about Africa. That makes it unique and interesting and compelling, and it's also really nicely put together. I definitely recommend it. It's out on Steam now.